Hey friend, it's Patricia here. We are about to get started with today's episode, but first, if you want to land a position that is a perfect fit at a great company, making good money, even if you don't have a fancy title or a big network or a ton of experience, then head over into the description and grab the Career Transition Checklist. This is basically a checklist that includes all 7 phases of a successful career search, many of which people miss altogether all the time. So grab that in the description. Know that I'm cheering you on all the way through. And now let's get into today's episode. Hey friend, let's talk about your amazing God-given brand and the mindset you need to stand out in a crowded job market. Whether you want to launch, pivot, or move up in your career, we're going to tackle this together. Meet up with me each week to help you get confident, get noticed, and get hired. I'm Patricia Ortega, and this is the Uncommon Career Podcast. First, before we get into this conversation that I know is going to be so good, tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal story, and your career background specifically, because we're going to dive into that in a second.
Okay. So I am a Navy brat and an Army wife, and my husband retired 16 years ago, and I've lived in 50 houses. So I've moved around a little bit, and I can pack really fast and unpack pretty quickly. I have 2 children. They're adults now. They're both adopted, and I have been married almost 40 years. So I was a homeschool mom for most of those years. I thought I was going to be Admiral of the Navy when I grew up, but that didn't pan out by junior high, so I was over it and thought I'd be an attorney. And so, God just had a different plan. But so I put some plans on hold, got married, adopted some babies, and, just became a stay-at-home mom. But over time, I did do different jobs, but every job had something to do with connections. That has just been my passion about relationships and connecting people and communication. So that's pretty much has been a theme through all of the jobs that I've done.
I love that. So it's always been connections. When did you know that connections was like your thing? Sometimes it takes us a lifetime to find like our superpower, how did you know that?
That's a good question. I remember thinking, I don't have any of those gifts. Like if somebody came to town, I wanted somebody to come to town and be like, if you need this thing, then go see DeeDee. And I didn't have any of those skills. I'm not technical. I'm not, mechanical, any of those things. And I mean, I can, get through life, but that wasn't my, that's her superpower. And, through working at the church, I worked for the church for about almost 4 years as their connection specialist. They actually created the job for me, which was cool. But we did some classes and different things like that. And I realized that my superpower is that I can connect with anybody, anywhere, anytime. And as I looked back, I'm like, I've always done that, since, I came out. I mean, of my mother, I'm just connecting and talking and chatting. So that's me.
That is awesome. So when they created, and we're going to go into your career pivots in a second, but I'm already thinking you had someone create a position for you.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Pretty awesome. It's also pretty unique, right? So, and you're the connection expert. And so you've gone to develop your relationship building skills and you realized I have like this knack for building relationships, right? There is something that happened, something that motivated someone to do something such as, let me create an entire position around this one person. What do you think that was? How do you think it went from your very first day to someone trusting you, to someone saying, you're so valuable to this team, I'm going to create something around what you do?
I think when you know yourself, that helps a lot because then you can sell yourself. Not necessarily that I was out there, trying to get a job at a certain thing, but I was at the church. I got hired on as their receptionist, which was great. I loved it. I thought, I just need a little part-time job. I'm happy with that. And, but then the church came along and said, we really need to be able to plug people in. And I'm like, me, I can do that. And so we sat down and said, what are the skill sets that you have? And, to be able to be honest about your strengths and your weaknesses and work in your strengths is what's really important, to promote those to your boss instead of your weaknesses, because why work in those? Why not work in your strengths? The book, The Strength Finder, I don't know if you've done that or not, but
oh yeah.
amazing book. It really does help people figure out what their strengths are. And I love the fact that they say, work in your strengths, not in your weaknesses. Not that you can't still work on them. And I do. Like back in the day, I couldn't turn a computer on, but now I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take care of it. Still have my moments. But I think the important thing was that I was willing to step up and say, I want to do it, that I had the desire. And that I did have some of the background to do that, to make that connection, get people plugged in. I know how to be new, having moved around so much. And I'm an extreme extrovert. So that was helpful, in that position too. Not that you had to be that way. I mean, somebody else could do the job and they would just do it differently. But the way that they created for me was I was going to plug in everybody. I worked at not just only plugging in the person that came to the church, but I helped all the different ministries plug in people that they needed. So to help grow ministries for them in that way. It was the best job ever. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
That is awesome. Okay. You had a couple of really, wise golden nuggets in your conversation when you just responded to that. One of the things you said was that you worked off of your strengths. You have to know your strengths in order to be able to say and advocate for yourself and say, hey, this is what I love doing, but it's also what I'm really good at doing. So if you want to get the best bang for your buck, this is what you're going to place me, these are the tasks that you're going to have me do. Now, the other thing that you said that I absolutely love is that you were like, ooh, me, right? Like you were excited about it. Yeah. And you made that known. And I feel like there's this idea that to move up in your career, you've got to be this like super stuffy, super professional, you know what I mean? Like really serious, managerial, and I just don't think that's the case. You and I are good examples of that I'm always like cheerful and like, oh, I want to do that. That sounds cool, And so there is a space for us happy people. Like there's a space for us in the career world for us to say, hey, that's something that really interests me. I would love to do it. And a lot of times we don't speak up. And I say we very generally as like professionals, right? And sometimes as women, we might not speak up and we might just be more reserved because we're like, well, if I speak up and then it turns out I'm not great at this, then what is that going to say about me? And it's sort of like you said, knowing your strengths, right? You don't have to be perfect.
Oh, sorry. I think I know what it says about you is that you're willing to take a chance. You're willing to grow and to be challenged. And that's the thing that even if you fail, that you make sure that you communicate that with whoever that you're working with. You know what? I tried as hard as I could. I just didn't have the skill set that I thought I did it in this area. But boy, I learned how great I was at this, and look at the process that we did or the progress that we got in the project because I was able to, be a part of that. So also just taking a chance, that's the big thing that I think a lot of people just don't want to do. And it's okay. You are who you are. And another thing, when you try to be that like professional, I'm saying that in air quotes, person that's serious and, more reserved and all that. If that's not your personality, you are going to die in that job. You are never.
Yeah.
You'll go to work dreading it. I mean, I went to work every day for 4 years and there were issues and stuff going on. I mean, it's a church full of people that, that hurt, but amazing people too. But I went to work every single day, and I'm kidding you not, every day, thrilled that I got to go to that job because I was doing exactly what I love to do. And I got to be plugged in. I had to make myself go home because I enjoyed it so much. And, I think that's the kind of job that you want to look for, or when you start really evaluating who you are, then you can say, where do I plug into the world? But another thing is sometimes we don't plug in. Sometimes there's no position that has a title for us. Like my position that I work at now I work for a publishing house, a Christian publishing house, and there's only 3 of us. There's 2 owners and me. And before I started to work there, I met Tamara Clymer, she's one of the owners of Cross River Media at a Christian Writers Conference. I was very new at it, but we just enjoyed each other right away. We had a lot of things in common. Both of us are adopted moms. I have a cochlear implant, so I'm deaf, and one of her daughters is. So, it's just those connections. And so I just thought about it over the year, and I saw her the next year. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to approach her. And I didn't know anything. I didn't have a book, published. I didn't know anything about publishing industry or anything like that. But I knew how to connect to people, whatever job they did. So I asked her, I was like, is there something that you and I could do together? I would love to work for you. I couldn't believe I was so bold. Like, here's this editor of her own publishing house. And I'm like, yeah, I want to work with you. And I don't know anything about the industry. And she's like, well, do you edit? And I was like, nope. She's like, do you do this? I was like, yeah, no. Mm-mm. So we talked a little longer and she's like, what's your background? And I said, really, my background is connecting people. And she was like, oh my word, that's exactly what I need. She needed somebody to take care of her authors over the 2-year process that it takes to go from contract to getting it published and getting it marketed. And I was like, I can be a cheerleader, been that a few times in my life. But I also can be the nag that tells them, hey, you got to keep going and get that done. So she created a position called Author Relations Coordinator. So I'm the ARC of the company, but I like to call myself the writer wrangler because I live in Colorado. So I'm thinking writer wrangler. And she's like, no. So we settled on Author Relations Coordinator. But yeah, it's a great job. I've been doing it for about 5 years now. So 6 years this year.
That's awesome. And that was another moment where you said, hey, this is what I can do for you. And even before you knew what it was that you can contribute,
right?
You were open about saying, hey, I want to work for you. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like. Let's just talk about it and see what happens. Like, just being open to that conversation. I remember there was a time, literally what you're talking about, it brings up a story. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting how quickly we bring up stories and how quickly we find things in common, right? Mm-hmm. But there was a time when I worked at a university. Actually, it was a community college at that time. And there was a project that needed statistics work. Now I was fresh out of grad school. So I would never been a statistician. I just happened to use a little bit of stats to do my research project. That was it. There was this big program that needed to be assessed and we needed to figure out, are they graduating students at a specific rate? And same thing as you, like I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, oh, I'll do it. Like if no one else is doing it, I'll do the research. And then we had a meeting and I remember in that meeting, I had to be very honest. And I was like, listen, I don't do this as a career. I've only done it as a student. I had a faculty mentor at that time, but I am willing to do all the research needed to figure out how to do this. I am willing to have the meetings with whoever I need to have the meetings with to coordinate whatever I need to coordinate. If you're comfortable with my level of, I'm going to say resourcefulness because it's not my level of skill yet. If you're comfortable with my level of resourcefulness, let's see what we can do together. Yeah. And this dean put his faith in me and was like, hey, if you're confident you can figure it out, then let's do it. And that project was difficult. We had our bumps, but we made it through. And that project actually helped to provide the statistics that helped to institutionalize that program, which is huge. Yeah. Yeah. And it was all started from some young professional who was like, hey, I'll do it. Yep. And a manager who was like, if you're willing to do it, I'm willing to support you in it. And there's other managers that are willing to do that too.
I truly believe that most companies and managers, projects, if somebody has a willing spirit, that goes a long way. If they have a teachable spirit, that's the other thing that's so important is, like you said, I don't know it all, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to invest the time to figure it out. And I think, there's not a lot of people out there that will say that and do it, so that's kind of important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So I know that we talked a little bit about, the position that you held at the church. You mentioned a little bit about the publishing position, but do us a favor, like draw things out for us. Like what positions have you had professionally up to where you are now?
So let's see. Well, I actually homeschooled for 10 years. And during that time, I did different things. I was a movie projectionist, and I actually ran the theater at one point, and a movie theater. It's fun on Fort Meade, Maryland. Let me see what else I've done. I've been a writer for a newspaper. I was actually a sports writer for a while, followed a football team. Again, I didn't know how to do it, but they were like, you want to do it? I'm like, sure, I'll try it. So I didn't know that much about football. Now I'm a huge football fan. So just things like that. I'm trying to think what else I've done. Just a lot of volunteer work until, like I said, my kids were in school, and then I went to work at the church. And after that, I took off a few years to love on my grandbabies and watch them for our daughter, who was single at the time. And then it was like, okay, now they're gone. What do I do with my life? I'm 50 at this point. I've always wanted to write. I wrote different things, articles and stuff throughout my life, but didn't take it seriously as a career. I wasn't sure I could make it, and I think a lot of people think that in their careers that they're not capable yet. And so they shouldn't take a step. And we've been talking about that already. But so my step was to go commit a lot of money to go to a Christian writers conference. And it was like 4.5 days long up here in up the north part of Colorado. And I went there and that I was 50, so I was 50 years old before I got anything published. And what I was amazed was that they wanted to see my writing. So I was like, oh, and that first day that first conference, I actually got to sell, an article that I wrote for news, that this guy liked. And what was really cool is it made him laugh out loud. And it was a funny story. So I was glad that he laughed out loud in front of me. Like, to me, that was like, oh yeah, that's good stuff. So
that's how you know, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
You were saying something?
I just say that I think every single job that I've had, I mean, I've worked with just helping people, talk to them, comfort them, but I do that on a just regular basis anyway. Like somebody's there, I'm going to chat with them. I could chat to a pole if I had to. That's me. My kids are so funny because they're like, oh, there she goes again. She's talking to the stranger. I'm like, not a stranger anymore. So I was a CASA advocate for a while and loved doing that, but I wasn't real good at it because I'm more of a mentor than an observer. And that's what CASA advocates do. They observe more. And I wanted to mentor the mom. So I've done a lot of mentoring, probably over 30 years. I've done relationship coaching. That's another thing that I've just kind of done on my own. But yeah, that's pretty much my career.
That is awesome. So there's 2 questions that I have. I'm going to start with one because they're going in different directions, but
sorry.
there was, no, this is good. This is really good, actually. There was a counselor when I was a student. She was a career counselor, and a lot of career counselors, kind of what they've said has stuck with me. Clearly that's why we're here. Right. Yeah. But I remember being in her office, and I was a student at the time, and I was like, I don't know what I want my major to be. I don't know what I want to do with my life. What if I mess up? And she's like, listen, she's like, I have had 21 careers in 14 different industries. And she wasn't like, I mean, even if she had been older, like that's still a lot of careers in a lot of different industries. And she's like, I've gone from the aviation industry to the hospitality industry to the publishing. And she just went down this list. And I just remember thinking, wow, you've lived like 5 lives, right?
Yeah.
And that conversation kind of reminds me of what you're sharing, that you're like, I've been an author, I've been a coach, I've been, like that involves kind of developing a skill set over and over and over and over again. Hey there, super quick break just to let you know that if you're on LinkedIn, find me, Patricia Ortega. I actually am doing a 30-day series. Just look up hashtag 30-day career, and you'll have videos every single day where I walk you through what it's like to experience a comprehensive coaching program with myself, Patricia Ortega. So head over to LinkedIn and I will see you at hashtag 30-day career. And there's a resiliency, there's a tenacity. Like, tell us a little bit about what is that like for folks who are maybe worried, like, oh, I don't want to change careers because doing something new, I don't know if I want to start again.
Yeah. So everything has always been new to me in my life because of moving around so much. I had to adapt to that. And a lot of military kids don't, but some do. And so it just kind of depends on your personality. Plus, I'm a type A personality. So I've got to be learning something new, doing something, be involved. And I can't just go to a club. I have to run the club. I mean, that's kind of, my personality. And so but I love to learn new things. And I think having that is a real gift, being teachable, like I said earlier, but also just having that willingness to want to learn and to go look for places. I mean, a lot of things that I had to learn were way before the internet and, where you can Google it and YouTube it and all that. So I think just being willing, but also kind of knowing what your theme is in life. If that counselor had looked at her life, there was probably a theme in that she did, even though she might have done it in different careers. And so you become more comfortable with change, but because part of it is still the same. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Literally. Absolutely. There's a book called Find Your Red Thread. And it talks about throughout your life, there's like a thread to everything, right? Yeah. And how you're mentioning, even if you're changing industries, even if you're changing careers, it's kind of like, it's a bad analogy, but this was coming to my mind. So I'm just going to say it because I just speak what's on my mind, right? But have you ever heard when counselors say, if you're one person with one bad relationship, maybe it's them. But if you're the same person with 10 bad relationships, the only thing they have in common is you, right? So that's that's kind of what it brings to mind, where it's like all the careers that you've had, the only thing they really have in common is you.
Right.
So what is it that you bring to each career, and how is that your thread? Like, that's one way to find your thread, is to kind of mind map all the experiences that you've had and why you gravitated to all of those experiences.
I really think too, sitting down with somebody that really knows you, that has been with you through those different jobs, or, your career and your personal life, because it really, there isn't a, close the door and now I'm, a different person because it's after 5:00. We really do bring our personalities into relationships in the workplace and to the job. And so when we can figure out all of that, really, like you said, mind map, do those different things, write it down. That really helps too. Like, okay, I really like to do this, but I hate to do this. And so like the job I have now, when they start to talk about finance stuff, which is not my favorite thing to do, I can do it. I actually got A in accounting classes, but not something I want to do the rest of my life. It's a skill that I have, but it's not something I want to do. Like, I don't move towards that. So whenever they start to talk about that, they release me from the Zoom meeting and they go on and talk about the finance stuff, and I get to go and, do my connection stuff. So that's kind of cool. And even in my job at the church, the same way, if they start talking about money, they're like, okay, DeeDee, you can go. Because they knew I was like rolling my eyes and, playing. But I think just, you said about changing your jobs, it's just knowing what you want out of life. We're talking to our son who's 28 and saying to him, he's kind of at that point where, like, what career do I want to go to? He's a welder by trade. And it's like, so do I want to continue doing that? Do I want to do it on my own? And so it's like, well, look at what you want out of your life. My husband was a helicopter pilot in the Army, and he loved flying. That was one of the reasons why he went in the Army. But after he got to a certain rank, he didn't get to fly as much because he was too, they used him in the office and managing, more managerial. And he didn't enjoy it. That was not his career choice. You know what I mean? So you've got to make sure that whatever you choose is something that you're going to enjoy. Not that you have to be happy all the time, because we're not. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Or you can't disagree with your boss, but you have to understand that they are the authority, and so if you're willing to be under that authority in that position, then that's probably a good position for you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the point you make of looking forward in your career. Where is this job, my short-term goal? Where is it leading to? And is that going to facilitate the life that I want? Not just career that I want, but the overall life. Because, you can love being, I don't know, a lawyer, a doctor, right? But if the other dream that you have is in your personal life, to take vacations, to have a flexible work life, et cetera, then those may not be the right fit. So it's good to look like at 360. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to ask you about is this career change into publishing. You've got, a life of a lot of different experiences, but none of those really revolve around the publishing world. This is something that's really new. And oftentimes we think, okay, how do I even get into the industry, which we chatted about a little bit before. But then B, like, how do I start over? So tell us like your story of getting into publishing, everything from like how you got into it, the first day, was it what you expected? All the good stuff.
So for me, I think I'm really spoiled about how my job situation happened. And I don't know how often people get to do this. But like I said, I asked Tammy for a job, like, can I work with you? I wasn't asking her necessarily to pay me. I just was like, I just want to be in a project with you. And so I think approaching her that way was good, because then it sort of eased it into, okay, now we're going to be, working together. And so we sat down and was like, what are your expectations? What do you need is what I asked her. And what are the things that I could supply? And I was like, I can do that. Like, I will do it better than you even know. Like, I'm so good at that. And so we did that, but I didn't know anything about the writing industry. So one of the things that we do now since 2016, I think it was when I started, every week we meet on Zoom. So even before, COVID and all that, we were already way ahead of the game, but we didn't know we were. But so we meet every week, at least once, and for an hour with the whole team. And they talk about things that I have no idea. But what I did was I asked questions. So now I feel like I've learned a lot. Just the other day, I was at a bookstore, putting some of my books in the bookstore for the owner, and she introduced me to one of her customers. And you would have thought that I was like Elvis or something. This lady was so sweet. She just kept hugging me and talking to me, asking me all these questions about writing. And then I realized I'm like, I know a lot about the writing industry, just being around it, you know what I mean? Like soaking it up, going to conferences, you know, reading articles about it, listening to podcasts, you know, all those things that get you moving forward in your career. And anybody can do that because there are podcasts about everything. There's, you know, an article or a chat group on Facebook or whatever. There's some place where you can connect. And just being willing to do that is really that helps you change from one career to another. My husband was the same way. He was an aviator. He was a pilot in the Army. And then it was like, okay, now I've been in there for 30 years. What do I do now? And he actually became a bus driver, for a school bus driver for at how old was he? 50, almost 50 years old. And he became a bus driver for special needs kids, and he loved that. I'm thinking that's like hell in a tin can, like on wheels, like, you know, no way. I mean, I love my kids. I love, you know, I do love kids, but not driving and trying to get them. No, but he really saw it as a ministry and loved that job. He's not a type A. He's not driven kind of person. And he was in that kind of position his whole 30 years of his career. And so to be able to do a job that's laid back and he could just really love on the kids, that made a difference. And for me, my job, I like the flexibility. I can set up meetings and we can do Zooms. We can do a phone call. I can meet somebody in person. So I have all those changes that happen. And I have different kinds of connections throughout my week. And I like that. I am not a person that likes to do things the same thing every day, you know, routine. Again, that goes back to that, you know, what kind of personality are you? I'm a project person. So to work with an author to get all the way through her, publishing, you know, time frame, that is a project. So I get to work with her. I get to encourage her, love on her, and, you know, move her through the system. And that for me is perfect. I like being able to have the flexibility of saying, you know what, this day, like yesterday, I took off yesterday. I was just like, you know, I'm just going to chill out. So I like that part. For me, that was that is a big part of what kind of job I'll take now. My husband is fully retired. So I need a job or want a job that I could travel with. So I can write from home, or I can write in an RV. I can write from home. I can speak in different places. I could sell, or, you know, whatever those things are. I am very flexible. And so for me, that was important for my new, you know, lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh gosh. Okay. So figuring out what's important. And then once you figured out what's important, you gave a good tip there is, you know, immerse yourself in the world that you want to go into. You may not be XYZ, you know, professional right now. You may not be in that particular career, but like you said, there's podcasts on everything, YouTube videos on everything. There's groups on everything. So become a part of that world in order to become a paid part of that world. Exactly. So, right, you got to do it for free before you get paid for it.
Yep.
So I love that. Okay. So, I don't want to take too much of your time. So we are going to start to wrap up, but you're such a wealth of knowledge. Like, what insights can you share with career seekers who are trying to get into, whether it's the publishing world or maybe just a new career? But if you have any tips specific to the publishing or the marketing world, we'll take that too.
Okay. Again, I think it's this thing that we've been talking about the whole time, really, is that take a chance, take a leap. You never know what skill that you have that they need, that sometimes they don't even know they need it, you know, until you are face to face with them and say, hey, you know what, this is what I have. But another thing is today's world, there's so many things that we have to connect, like to apply for a job. It's all online. You don't get to meet the person. But if you are already in organizations around them, if you are building your skill set for that position, one of the things that I did, I wanted to be a speaker. So I started going to Toastmasters. It's a great organization to teach you. Please don't count my ums that I've said over today, because that's what they do there. It makes it worse. Started saying it again. Anyway, that's one of the steps that I took. I took another step after that to go to the National Speakers Academy, which was, you know, made it up another level. So those are the things that I did. I was like, where do I want to be and how do I get there? And so it's breaking it down, you know, reverse engineering what you want to do. I think that's something that people need to see. Dream big. Figure out where the dream goes. I started writing my book 32 years ago that just came out a couple of days ago. That's amazing to me that like that story is finally alive. It's birthed. It's gone. You know, I mean, and 32 years ago, I was like, yeah, it'd be so neat if this was published. Well, how am I going to get it published? I'm going to learn some things along the way. And I didn't realize that I was learning things along the way too. I wasn't as purposeful, but be purposeful. That's a huge thing.
I love that. And that goes along how you're saying, right? Here's where I want to be in the long term. And here's a position that not only gives me a paycheck, not only utilizes my strengths and my interests, but at the same time also gives me skills for the next step that I want to take. And like you said, being purposeful and intentional with that long-term goal. Okay, so this is the perfect
tip. Sorry.
Yes, yes. All the tips you have.
Just remember, everything you do is relational. Every single thing you do. If you have a great relationship with your boss or your, whoever your lead is, or even the people that are, that are behind you or are not as advanced as you are, make sure that you have that whole, not the right word, the whole level of people, like the very beginners to the advanced, so that you're helping those people that are, have just started or want to start. But you're also gleaning from those people that have gone before you and know what they do, and be respectful of that, that you get to have all those relationships in your life and honor those relationships.
That's so good. There's a networking like handout that I have in the course that kind of draws out a visual of your network, and it implements that same thing that you're talking about of you should have people from really influential, high up there decision makers to folks that you are mentoring, and folks that are in your inner circle to folks that are kind of more acquaintances, but in other parts of the world, other parts of life, other industries. I love that you brought that up. Thank you for that. Okay, so you mentioned it, and now I want to ask you about it. So you are writing a book. You started writing it a long time ago, and now it's come to fruition. So tell us what projects you have outside of work, and where we can find you, like all the good stuff.
Okay. So I have a writing partner now who's the one who helped me get that story to the publisher. It was funny because we both work for publishers. She works for a different one. And a while back, she said, hey, do you want a writing partner? And I was like, I don't even know how that works. So anyway, we did, and we connected. She's in Wisconsin. I'm here in Colorado. And we meet on Zoom. And that's how we kind of connect with how we're going to write the story. But it's a 6-book series. The first one is called, the series is called Rules of Engagement. I'm like, what is the name of the title? The Rules of Engagement. The first one is Operation Camouflage Christmas, and it's a novella, and it came out last November. The one that just came out is Operation Allegiance. And in that story, it's a clean, sweet romance that is a Christian based, but it's not over your head, beating you over. It's just, that's who I am. And so that's kind of how the story is going to come out. And, but it's a couple that, she was an Army brat and said, I never want to marry an Army guy. He's an Army guy that is trying to figure out who his allegiance is to, God or his country or love. And so they have some suspense in there. It's just a lot of fun. And the whole series, it follows the 5 Sava kids, adults, and how they're connected to the military. And for me, my heart was, because I was a Navy brat and an Army wife, I want to bring awareness or like a focus on the military lifestyle. And so all the different ways that people are connected to the military, the wounded warrior, the Gold Star family, the military brats, the Army spouse, or the military spouse. So all of those, each story kind of focus on a different one, and just a lot of fun. There's horses and dogs in it, and all kind of different things in the story. So.
Okay, that is really cool. I've been looking for something to kind of, work can be stressful, right? And so I'm looking for something to like mellow out, like leisure reading, right? A nice story. And honestly, what you're describing right now sounds right up my alley. So nice. I will be checking out your book.
Thanks.
That is awesome. So where can we find you? Websites, handles, all that.
My website is DeeDeeLake.com, and DeeDee has lots of E's. So it's DeeDeeLake.com. And then you can find the book on there. You can also find it on Amazon or any of the online, major bookstores, but also you get a little discount if you go to my publisher, which is crossrivermedia.com. So yeah, any of those places, and keep on, putting out reviews. That would be awesome. If you know that authors need Jesus, chocolate, and reviews. That's what we live on. So we need to make sure if you want to love on an author, that's what you need to do.
Jesus, chocolate, and reviews. There you go. There you go. I love it. Well, the links for everything will be in the description. Y'all can grab them. I had a lot of fun talking with you, DeeDee, today. So I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Patricia. I have been looking forward to spending this time with you. We got to talk a little bit before we recorded, and yeah, you're just somebody that I really enjoy listening to, and I hope all of your listeners are enjoying it as much because you're awesome. Keep on doing what you're doing.
I love it. I love talking to you too. I'm sure you'll be on again. And so until then, my friends, we will be praying for you. We'll talk to you soon, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
It's me again. Thank you for listening. You're now done with the very first step in becoming a part of the Uncommon Career community, and that was to listen to this podcast. So, woohoo! Congratulations, you are done. Your next step is to head over to theuncommoncareer.com or to click on the link in the description to get your career resources that are going to help you make career progress right now. So again, before you forget, head over to theuncommoncareer.com or just click the link in the description, grab your resources, and I'll see you there.